Yo, what's going on, guys? Johnny GB here, bringing you guys my draft analysis for ICBA Season 2. Season 1 has just ended, the finals being played today. If you guys have not seen the finals for Season 1, Deebs and Merc are uploading, I believe, at 12 Pacific time. So actually, if while I'm recording this should be up, so you guys should be able to go over to their channels, check it out, see who won. I personally do not know who's won this battle yet, so it will be a surprise to me when I finally get to sit down and watch it. I will have an update over on the ICBA channel regarding the Season 1 champion and how they've played, as well as a Season 1 recap, kind of just summing up what happened throughout the season. But now we are on to Season 2. This is the draft analysis for your Oregon Ducklets, and it is a very fun draft, honestly. It's going to be a draft I'm going to enjoy using. I got a lot of the Mons I wanted. Had quite a few snipes that really affected my later half of the draft, but thanks to the front office, a couple of guys in there, Nada Please, Darth Vader, Jay from the D-League, he's also in there. Just a lot of guys helping out in the draft to really just help recover off some of those snipes I had from my original plan. Now, in ICBA, if you guys missed the rules video, that's over on the ICBA channel. We did unban quite a few more Pokemon for that S tier, and a couple things changed tier. Now, we started off as the 9th pick in the draft, so not a great spot. Really wasn't expecting a lot of the powerhouses to be there. I wasn't expecting Mega Metagross, Darkrai, Pheromosa, Protean, and Ash Greninja. I wasn't expecting to be there as well. But for the first pick in the draft, Protean Greninja did actually fall to us. Now, one typo that is on this draft analysis graphics is down on the bottom, is where it says ICBA Season 4. I did edit these from my PMC draft analysis. Again, shout out to Deebs for the template for this, as he's the one that made this, but I did not change the Season 4 to Season 2 on all the Pokemon. The only one that I did remember to change was the intro slide. But as far as my first pick, we managed to land Protean Greninja. And I was a little surprised this fell to 4, because a couple of things that were drafted ahead of it, stuff like Jirachi, Necrozma, were both taken before it, which really allowed it to fall to me at the number 9 slot. And it's a Pokemon that it's fairly easy to build around. You look at its typing, Water, Dark, decent typing, but with the Protean ability, it has Stab any move. So it allows me to limit the amount of super effective damage Greninja is going to take. It allows me to have a variety of different typings onto it. And Greninja, what it does very well is it's a very good lead. And I'm saying that because it does get access to two forms of hazard setup, being Toxic Spikes and Spikes. And with its base 122 speed, it outspeeds a lot of the meta, with the exclusion of stuff like Mega Alakazam and I believe Megalopony are the two main ones I can think of off the top of my head that it doesn't outspeed. There's a lot of other ones in the base 125 plus range, but as far as what it can do, set up Toxic Spikes, Spikes, and can set them up very easily, seeing as it does have that base 122 speed. It also has a pretty diverse move pool when it comes to its attacks, whether it be physical or special. It's something Greninja can be used as a physical attacker or a special attacker. You look at its physical move pool side, you have moves like Acrobatics, Gunk Shot, Low Kick, Night Slash, Power Up Punch, Rock Slide, Waterfall. And then over on the special side, it does get access to stuff like Water Shuriken, Hydro Pump, Scald, Ice Beam, and then Hidden Power. It also takes the typing of the Hidden Power that you are. So offensively, Greninja can do a lot. It can be a hazard setter, which I really want. I want Spikes, I want Toxic Spikes, just to help out against some of the bulkier teams. And just really for it falling to 9th pick, I kind of had to take it. I couldn't let this thing fall. anywhere past that. Now, for my second pick, we did have the middle part of the draft, so there's not much I can do about that. So I kind of just have to sit and wait, and hopefully something won't be sniped in the next 16 picks until it gets to me. But thankfully, this Mon did not get sniped for me in the ICBA, and that is Zapdos. Now, this is a Pokemon I've wanted to use in the PMC. It's a Pokemon that I really love using. It's a very solid electric type, access to reliable recovery and roost, and it's also a very good switch initiative Mon with access to U-turn and access to Volt Switch. Really just allows it to get into some of my threats that I have later on in the draft. Now, Zapdos' two abilities are actually very good ones. One is Pressure, which prevents essentially a stall war with other Pokemon, as they will be forced to struggle. And then the other being Static, which is actually a very good one. The only drawback about Static Zapdos is I can no longer run Defog onto it. But it can work as a very good switch into a lot of physical Mons that may enjoy being paralyzed, and I don't have to worry about bringing Thunder Wave or any form of slowing down my opponents. Now, as far as its base stats, you have them on there. Base 100 speed, nice speed tier, ties all the mythical Pokemon. Shaman, Mew, Jirachi, depending on my speed investment. 125 special attack, very good special attack stat. Zapdos can be run offensively. Most people like to run it as a defensive Mon. Toxic, Roost, Volt Switch, Hidden Power, something along those lines. But Zapdos can be brought offensively, has a very solid move pool with access to moves like Discharge, Heat Wave to deal with the steel types that may want to switch into it, also access to Extra Sensory, Signal Beam, Thunderbolt, Volt Switch. So there's a lot Zapdos can do, and also access to being a reliable hazard removal option is something that's key. It's a mistake I had in my PMC draft, was that I did not have solid removal. Togetic, or Togetic, which however you want to pronounce it, I've always pronounced it Togetic, and Hitmonchan. Right now Zapdos is already better than what I have removal-wise in the PMC, and it's not just going to be forced into that removal role just because I can do a lot with it. It can be run bulky, it can be run specially offensive. So Zapdos is going to be a very important member of the team, and something that I'm going to enjoy using. I had it in the PMC Season 3 towards the end of the season and managed to use it very well. So that's my goal this season, is to use Zapdos very well, and really just not let this pick be a letdown. Now, for my third pick in the draft, I needed a Dragon type, and I knew I wouldn't be able to get Zygarde or Garchomp, but I did manage to land Salamence, which I used in quite a few leagues now, and it's a very good Pokemon. Especially with the addition of Z-Move, Salamence becomes a lot bigger threat, and you're going to see throughout the season, I probably will use Z-Move a lot. Not really sure, it really just depends on the matchup, but Z-Move essentially allows this thing to kill something or kill one of its potential switch-ins. You have a Fairy type, well, I can run Corkscrew Crush to take out that Steel type, or that Fairy type. Steel type that switches in, I can run Tectonic Rage to get rid of that Steel type. So Salamence has a wide variety of move pool, and with its stat distribution, it can do a lot. One underrated Salamence set is the bulky Salamence, with base 80 defense, but access to Intimidate to go along with base 95 HP. Serves as a very good physical defensive Mon that also has access to reliable recovery and roost. You're looking at a potential special Salamence. It does actually have a very solid special move pool with access to stuff like Dragon Pulse, Draco Meteor, Fire Blast, Flamethrower, Hydro Pump. So Salamence can run that specially offensive set to catch teams off guard. It does have the Dragon Dance Moxie setup sweeper. So there's a lot that Salamence can do, and it's going to be a threat to a lot of teams. If my opponent has a weakened team and I can set up a Dragon Dance, Salamence can essentially just win the game from that point on. So it was already a good Pokemon, but now you're adding Z moves to Salamence, which allows it to immediately break a potential switch into it, which just helps it out so much. I mean, last gen it did get the Mega Evolution that sent it straight to Ubers, and now it gets the Z crystals that really just help it out in terms of breaking its potential walls, especially with the base 135 attack. Get that with the +1 Dragon Dance, kill something, get a +2. Now you have an extreme threat that outspeeds a lot of the choice scarfers that tend to check it with an ice type coverage. Now, my team is pretty weak to ice at this moment, and I have some picks later on in the draft that will help it, but I needed an immediate answer to it. I also needed a reliable breaking solution to steel types, because Earthquake Salamence, yeah, it's nice, but I'd really just, I mean, not Earthquake, Bulldoze Salamence is nice. Oh, no, it does get Earthquake. I was looking at the useless moves. Earthquake Salamence is nice to hit steel types. Most steel types don't have reliable recovery, but I do need that reliable option of breaking steel types, just in case that I need to not bring Salamence that week. I need that one type of answer to those steel types, and that answer is Entei. I've used Entei quite a lot in League lately, and personally it's a toss-up between Entei and Emboar. Depending on what I need in my tiering, I will choose between Entei and Emboar. Still have not gotten to use Darmanitan in an upload league yet. I do have it over in the PBA. But looking at Entei, very solid breaker, base 115 attack. Not the strongest, but it's serviceable with moves such as Sacred Fire, Flare Blitz, possibly Bandit. Gives me access to priority move in extreme speed, which is very good to have, especially to revenge kill something that may be weakened. You look at its bulk, 115, 85, 75. It's not bad. It is weak to rocks. I got 3 weaknesses to rocks right now, so it's a little bit of an issue. 2 of my removal options are weak to rocks, so that's something I do have to fix later on in the draft. Base 90 special attack, it's again serviceable with access to stuff like Calm Mind. But mostly it's just there to be that breaker. If I need to click Flare Blitz or Sacred Fire on a potential switch in just to damage it, because a lot of the stuff that's going to switch into Entei usually won't have the best of reliable recovery, the top switch in being Milotic, because if you do get the burn with Sacred Fire, all you're doing is helping it out with the Marvel scale. But some other stuff that doesn't get the best reliable recovery, stuff like Seismitoad and Lantern that Entei can just chip away at, swap out, really just makes it a very good Pokemon, especially with a lot of the rest of the offense presence. The ability to have Entei break down a lot of the walls is pretty much what it is needed for. Its role in the team is to be that wall breaker so that Zapdos or Greninja can potentially go in late game and clean up the rest of the game. Again, another very good ability in Pressure pretty much allows it to not be stalled by certain Pokemon, forcing them to use extra power points when attacking. That's having the double pressure pretty much eliminates any type of stalling versus my team, which is a very good strategy. It's not the top strategy I have going into it, but if it comes down to where I need to pressure stall or just waste my opponent's moves, especially on moves like Hydro Pump and Fire Blast, a lot of those moves that have very limited power points, Pressure comes in very clutch on Entei. Now, at this point, I wanted a reliable Dark type. Greninja's nice, but can't really take a hit, and especially in a league where we have stuff like Tapu Lele, Mega Gardevoir, that can freely Fairy spam and Psychic spam, especially versus my team. I needed a reliable answer to those, and the best option I had is Alolan Muck, and it's a Pokemon I actually have used before, and it's actually a very, very good Pokemon in League. You're looking at its stat distribution, 105 in HP and attack, 100 in its special defense, so 3 stats at base 100 or higher. Allows an Assault Vest variant to be used as that Tapu Lele answer. and just much easier to work around, especially with it being able to get pursuit, being able to deal with a lot of sidekicks that I can freely switch into thanks to now the dark typing added to Alolan Muck. Access to Gluttony, which allows it to eat berries a little bit earlier. Stuff like Figgy Berry Muck or Agua Berry Muck, stuff that heals my Muck in case I do not want to bring the Black Sludge. The poison typing is actually very nice to have, especially as a good fairy answer. I do have Entei that is a good fairy switch-in, but to check some fairies, Alolan Muck is a very good answer to a lot of fairies. Poison Touch, another very good ability. It does get 30% chance to poison on contact moves, and just looking at some of the move pool, you look at some of the stuff that Alolan Muck may struggle with, stuff like opposing dark types, because Crunch isn't doing much to them. Stuff like steel types that can switch in very freely to make sure that they're not poisoned or toxic. It does have Crunch, but it doesn't deal the most damage to a lot of steel types. Very good utility that Muck does get are Memento, does get access to Knockoff, Taunt, Toxic, also gets access to a couple other good moves that help it. Shadow Sneak for a priority. So there's a lot Muck can do, but I needed a very good fairy answer, and Muck actually just fits the team perfectly. Gives me another speed tier because right now I had 3 Mons at base 100, 1 at base 122, so I needed to range out my speed tiers a little bit more, and starting off with the base 50 Muck, it's not bad. It's a little bit on the slower side, but I do need that versatility in the speed tiers. That way I'm not really forced to run speedy Pokemon, frail Pokemon every week. Now, on top of Muck, I needed a fairy type. And most good fairies go early anyway. Your Lele, Gardevoir, Sylveon, Florges. A lot of that stuff surprisingly goes early. So I needed a good value fairy type, something that I can switch into special dragon moves. And Alolan Ninetales is what I went with, and this is actually a very good Pokemon. This is a Pokemon I actually struggled with in the semifinals of the ICBA. Gets access to a very good move, and a move I personally hate going against, and that is Aurora Veil. So this gives me Light Screen and Reflect, which is extremely good with some of the wall breakers I have. It prevents Entei from taking a lot of damage, Salamence from taking a lot of damage. Yes, Hails Up, giving Salamence chip damage, but I do have Roost. Pair that with Intimidate Salamence. Now I have a pretty decently bulky Salamence going against a physical threat that my opponent may have, which allows me to get a Dragon Dance off with the Aurora Veil up. Now looking at Ninetales, it gives me another speed tier. This is something that's filling the gap between Greninja's 122 and Zapdos, Salamence, Entei's base 100. Base 109 does not outspeed Mega Latios or anything in the 110 speed tier, but 109 is a very good speed tier to pretty much cover stuff like Garchomp and a couple others in that base 102, 103, stuff like Nihilego and that stuff. Looking at Ninetales' move pool, nothing really helps out that much because it does have that base 81 special attack. Pretty much a little bit of a disappointment there, but does get access to Nasty Plot, which allows it to set up. Also gets access to stuff like Moonblast and Ice Beam, very powerful stab moves, along with Calm Mind if I do want to run a bulkier Ninetales, and some good tech moves, stuff like Icy Wind and Freeze Dry, just to help out on potential threats, stuff like Bulky Waters that can switch into Ninetales fairly easily. Other stuff like Dragon or other things that may outspeed my Ninetales. Icy Wind allows me to drop their speed by 1, so Ninetales has that very good tech. Also can be a reliable Scarfer with that base 109. Isn't at that base 110 range yet, so it still can be a reliable Scarfer, Choice Spec user, Light Clay user, especially with the Aurora Veil. Something it may want to have this season is the Light Clay. So Ninetales, a very good Pokemon, very It's a Pokemon I found very underrated in the new Draft League format, especially having that Aurora Veil. Now, surprisingly, on my 7th pick, I managed to get a threat. And I managed to grab Azelf in the 7th round. Now, Azelf fits my team perfectly because it gives me, one, another Stealth Rocker. Well, it gives me a Stealth Rocker. That was the first Stealth Rocker I drafted. Gives me another very good lead outside of Greninja. Greninja can get spikes up, toxic spikes up. Azelf can get rocks, especially at the base 110 speed. Now I'm bridging my speed tiers a little bit better. I have something in between Alolan, Ninetales, and Greninja. Has a very diverse move pool, whether it's physically offensive or specially offensive. You look at some of the specially offensive moves, stuff like Flamethrower and Thunderbolt. You also get access to the elemental punches on the physical side, switch initiative in U-turn, so now I have Volt Turn going here with Greninja, Zapdos, and Azelf. Access to a couple more utility moves like Reflect, Light Screen, Knock Off, Taunt. A nice fast taunt user allows it to prevent my opponent from setting up any hazards. So Azelf, it's a very good mon. It carried me through PMC Season 2. And to pair it with Greninja really helps out because now I have two mons that both both outspeed a lot of threats. Azelf hits the hardest with 125 in either of its attack stats. And the coverage that both of those get just really help break down a lot of my opponent's team to help Salamence eventually clean up late game, or potentially even Entei clean up with extreme speed late game. And it may not be considered one of the top wall breakers, but for a tier 3 pick, Azelf was really just underrated, and it fits my team makeup perfectly. The speed tier fits perfectly. I needed a nice mixed attacker that can be run physically or specially, a fully special or fully physical mon. And with this as coverage, it can do a lot. Also, the Suicide lead set just is a perfect complement for my team. I also needed a very good Stealth Rocker. Azelf does fit that good Stealth Rocker role. Now, here's where the later half of the draft really just took a hit as far as snipes. Now, I do need a Grass type. I have a solid Fire type. I know the Water type I wanted to get, so I wasn't too worried about it being sniped. But mostly I wanted the Grass type. And my Grass type, honestly, unfortunately was sniped, and that was Virizion. I was really looking forward to getting Virizion, but I believe it was sniped like the pick before me, so I ended up having to settle for Rotom-Mow. Now, Rotom-Mow is not a bad Pokemon by any means. It's a very good defensive mon, whether it's physically or specially. Can switch into grass types. Having the ability to levitate is another very good mon to have. I have 2 ground immunities now, especially with having Entei and Muck both weak to ground. Now I have 4 immunities to ground, which really helps out in prep. And it's a very good utility mon, with access to stuff like Will-O-Wisp, Light Screen, Reflect, Pain Split, Toxic Trick, and Will-O-Wisp. Has a lot of nice utility roles that it can play on my team if I need something to trick a Scarf onto a potential wall, just to help limit what that wall is able to do. Rotom is able to do that. Gives me more switch initiative. Now I got 2 Volt Turners, 2 Volt Turn combos, which allows me easier access into potential threats like Salamence, Zapdos, Entei, Greninja. So that's something Rotom can provide as well. But outside of that, it's a nice bulkier grass. It's not the top tier bulky grass, but it does give me fairly good synergy with my team, being able to have all the different utility that it has to offer. But again, it just wasn't my first pick. It wasn't my first pick of grass types, but it is beneficial to me in a sense for my team. Now, Onto my water type. Now, my bulky water type is Seismitoad. Now, again, bulky water types I feel like should be on every draft, and what Seismitoad now does is it puts my opponent into an issue of bringing HP Grass or HP Ice on certain Mons. Example, Jolteon. Jolteon wants HP Grass for Seismitoad, but it also wants HP Ice for Salamence. So now I'm putting my opponent into a little bit of a predicament of which hidden power to bring on certain Mons for certain weeks. Seismitoad, 3 very good abilities: Swift Swim, Water Absorb, and it also does have Poison Touch. So 3 very solid abilities. Water Absorb actually giving me a water immunity. Not like I'm super weak to water. I have Salamence, I have Rotom, Seismitoad, so not like I'm super weak to water, but it does give me a water immunity. Looking at Seismitoad's move pool, has a very diverse move pool with access to stuff like Drain Punch, Earthquake, very powerful Stab, Hydro Pump, Knockoff. It also is my second Stealth Rocker on the team, which is very good to have. Now I have 2 Stealth Rockers, making Azelf a little bit more unpredictable. Not sure on my opponent's end what to prep for, whether it's a Rocks lead or a especially offensive. So Seismitoad takes a little heat off of Azelf in that aspect. As far as some of the other stuff, a lot of very good coverage move stuff like Rock Slide, Poison Jab, Sludge Wave, Sludge Bomb. So there's a lot Seismitoad can do. Grass type trying to switch into it, I do have the option to pack that Sludge Wave to end up hitting it for super effective damage. Can be a Swift Swim abuser if I do want to set up Manual Rain. So Seismitoad, it's a very good bulky water, a little underrated. There was other stuff I could have taken like Jellicent or Blastoise, but Seismitoad is the one that fit the bill for me. Just putting my opponent into that issue of HP Ice, HP Grass, I think is very important if you have ×4 week, because it's very easy to slap in hidden power coverage onto a lot of Mons. Now, I'm missing Steel types, and my last 2 picks were actually Steel types. They were Tier 5 Steel types as well. And the first of those being Alolan Sandslash. Now, Alolan Sandslash, to me, was a 3rd hazard removal option. Neutral to rocks, so not fantastic. I'm still taking 12%. But it gives me a Rapid Spinner, which, one, now takes heat off of Zapdos and Salamence from having to run Defog every week. But it also gives me now a Hail Abuser with a very fun speed tier being 130. Slush Rush does double Alolan Sandslash's speed, so essentially Sandslash now becomes a base 130 speed Mon. Does not outspeed anything above that, but still becomes a very good Hail Abuser. I do have the Hail to set up the screen, so now I have screens plus Slush Rush Alolan Sandslash. That can take a physical hit to an extent from certain Mons. Again, it is weak to fighting and fire ×4. But as far as anything else goes, has very powerful stabs in Icicle Crash and Iron Head. Other very useful moves that it can get, and I actually have this as a Z move user. But I'll get into my Z moves a little bit later on here after I get through my last Pokemon. Gets other interesting moves such as Leech Life, X Scissor, Night Slash, Poison Jab, Rock Slide, Brick Break. So there's a lot of interesting coverage Sandslash can use to eventually defeat its threats. Actually, the Leech Life isn't bad because it does give it access to some type of form of reliable recovery, especially at a +2 with the access to Swords Dance. Now I can have a Sandslash with a +2 Leech Life from a base 100 attack. Gave back a little bit of recovery on Mons that may switch into it fairly comfortably, like Slowbro, Slow King, any other type of bulky waters. Don't appreciate +2 Earthquakes. So Sandslash, it's going to be a very fun Mon to use. I've used Hail Core before, and just really didn't have the right support on the team for it, but I feel like with a lot of the support I have now for the team, with stuff like Zapdos and Salamence to cover Zapdos, Salamence, Azelf, Rotom to really cover that 4 times that ground weakness that it has. I have stuff like Salamence, Zapdos, Um, I rode him really to switch into fighting types now. I am a little bit weak to fighting types with coverage, but I do have a lot of different checks to those fighting types. So I'm very excited to use Sandslash. Not sure how many games it will be brought to, but it has that extra threat to my opponent that they have to prep for, is that Hail Sweeper. And for the final pick of the ICBA Season 2 draft for the Oregon Ducklets, we managed to take Steelix, and this is mostly because I needed a very reliable, physically offensive Dragon switch in. Now, it does not switch into 1,000 Arrows. It does not switch into Garchomp Earthquakes, so that's something it's not its role, therefore. It gives me a third Stealth Rocker. It gives me a nice physically defensive Mon, because outside of really Salamence, I did not have any very good physically defensive Mons. Has 3 solid abilities: Rockhead, Sturdy, and Sheer Force. But mostly it is a support role on the team. Now, it can be run offensive. It does get access to Rock Polish and I believe Hone Claws. Let me see. What do we got? It does get access to stuff like Autotomize, Rock Polish to boost its speed. Gets access to stuff like Taunt, Stealth Rocks, Roar, Toxic. So it's mostly there for a more of a support role. Stuff like Dragon Tail, it's a support move, forces my opponents out, especially with my hazard setting abilities. Stuff like Dragon Tail is very helpful, forcing my opponent to take chip damage every turn that they switch in, whether it's Spikes, Stealth Rock, Toxic Spikes. So Steelix, very good. It's a very good late round pick. It's not the cream of the crop steals. I mean, there's stuff like Metagross, Lucario I could have taken on the steel ends, but it fits what I needed on my team, that physically defensive Mon to switch into an Outrage or a Dragon Claw. Because right now, all I have for Steel Dragon type is Alolan and Ninetales. So most Steels do get some type of Ice coverage. But that is your Season 2 Oregon Ducklets team. I'm very excited to use this team. Very excited for this season. A lot of changes, a lot of new coaches, a lot of great players being added to the Season 2 lineup. So go over, check all their channels out. They will all be announced on Twitter by today. So go over to the Twitters, follow us over there for updates on Week 1. Your Week 1 Pick'em will actually be out on Friday, so keep an eye out that from our analyst. We will have the Pick'em up on Friday, and then Week 1 games will be up on Monday. But guys, if you guys enjoyed it, go ahead, smash the like button, comment your guys' support. Let me know. I am open to suggestions for transactions, so if you guys want to suggest any transactions to probably help make the team even better than what it is, go ahead, leave it down in the comments section below, guys. But with all that being said, I am Johnny GB, and I'm out.